Today we're going to talk about how polymer clay and the color wheel relate together and can help you to figure out what colors you really need to buy. Alright, this week, instead of a fun project, we're going to hit on something that I'm hopefully isn't going to be too boring. Something I've been wanting to cover for a while. We need to talk about color and why sometimes when we mix colors they don't come out the way we think they will. So probably a long time ago, when you were little, you learned what was special about these three colors, red, blue, and yellow. Those are our primary colors. Those are the colors we can't get by mixing any other colors. Those are the basic colors that everything else comes from. And we also learned if we mix red and yellow, we get orange. If we mix yellow and blue, we can get green. And blue and red, we get purple. That works really well if you've got pure hues, pure, like real red, real yellow, real blue. And then there's colors in between these that are called tertiary colors. Now when you go to the craft store, yeah, you can get these. The actual name of all of these, let's see, this is actually called orange. This is called red. This is violet. This is blue. This is green. And this is yellow. That's why I picked these varieties. But when you look at the yellow clays, it seems like there's 100 of them to pick from. Same with the greens and the blues and the purples and the reds and the oranges and everything in between. There's so many colors of clay that you may or may not have these really basic ones. And when you start mixing those not so basic colors, sometimes you get some kind of surprising results. And that's because of a few other things that we probably learned early on in school. So we've got a color wheel. Basically, this is our color wheel. This is a very basic color wheel. When we look across the color wheel from any position, we have a primary color and a secondary color. Do you remember what happened when you were in grade school and or in kindergarten or something, and you used your watercolors and you forgot to rinse the brush and you went from, say, red to green? You got muddy brown, right? Same with purple and yellow or blue and orange. When you mix the three primary colors together, you get brown. That also happens when you mix opposites on the color wheel. So if you take a red that's a little closer to purple and you mix it with yellow, you're not going to get a really pretty orange. You're going to get a brownish orange. That's why sometimes those don't work. I did a little experimenting this week. And I made some color samples. And I will try my best to get better pictures of this for the blog post. If I can't get them this weekend, I'll have them posted in the middle of the week. I'll have my son with his better camera do it. But I think I can get decent pictures today. So this is Indian red. Indian red is a little oranger than just red. And that's why I picked it. And I mixed Indian red right here. Oops, that's the plain red. These, let me get a pencil and kind of make a circle here. I mixed it with a little tiny sample of every yellow I owned. And Indian red, because it's a little more on the orange side, here's a color wheel. Indian red would sit closer to here than to here. When it mixes with yellows, as long as it's not a green yellow, and I didn't really have any greenish yellows, the Sculpey is probably a little closer to that. It's going to make a pretty decent orange. Then down here I did the same thing with all the blues I had. Because this is closer to red-orange, you start mixing with blue, you're getting into that blue-green area. You're getting into kind of the danger zone there. And some of these turned, like peppermint especially, turned into a really kind of nasty browny muddy color. And the peacock blue also, because that's a very green blue. Did not make a very attractive color. Then I decided to try Primo Pomegranate, and I did the same thing. And like I said, I will have these on the blog post in better pictures, hopefully. Pomegranate is a little bit, it's more of almost a neutral or close to a bluer color. It's closer to here on the color wheel. So when it starts mixing with yellows, it did okay, because it was close enough to pure red to do okay for the most part. And it was pure enough that on some of these, it did pretty good. Got into translucent, it didn't work well. And the aqua turned out really oddly. But it made, probably if these were lightened up, some of these would look okay for purples. Then I pulled out Magenta Pearl. Magenta is really more of a red-violet. I just wanted to see what it would do. And again, we have our yellows. And these really did not make oranges. They made kind of strange colors. But some of the purples turned out decently because it's a cooler red. So it came out, so that's how those colors, a color wheel can really be your friend when you look at it and see what colors you want to be mixing. Now how can we use that to our advantage? Well, let's say we have a red, or say we have a green. This is green, not red. Yeah, my brain is not here today. Let's take off just a little bit. This is a classic color, so it's going to be a little bit harder to mix. Let's see if I can do this by hand without having to get the pasta machine going. But this is awfully bright. What if we want to tone this down a little? Well, if we took just a tiny bit of red, too much red will make it brown. But if we take just a little bit, and I may have to pause the camera and come back with this mixed, this will tone it down. This way we could use this same green where we need something not quite so bright, because depending on what you're making, you may or may not want something this bright of a green. Let me pause the camera and I'll come back when I get this mixed. Alright, there it's mixed together. And now you see we've toned down that green considerably with just, you saw, I'm hoping the camera picked up how small of a bit of the red I put in there. But that's how you can tone down your colors. So if you look at your color wheel, if you have a color that's too bright, look straight across it on the color wheel and find something that's opposite to add to it to tone it down. This is a very nice, and this way it saves you buying colors, buying more clay. The same is going to work with any of these. You take some purple, you can add just a tiny bit of yellow. If you want to make it brighter, let me go the other direction. Let's go with a little green. And let's add just, let's see if I can get this. I'm going to add this much green, let you see what I've got, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and go mix this together. And that much yellow. Okay. I'm going to mix those together and I'll be back. Alright, so this is the green with just a little yellow in it, and it brightens it up a little bit. So if you have your basic colors, I would say you need some white too. You don't need to have 100 colors of clay to make any color you want. You just have to have some basic colors and the knowledge of this color wheel. And you can print off a color wheel off the internet. You could just look at one online if you want to refer to it that way. I do find it handy to have one in my drawer to have if I need it. And there's other information, like this one talks about relationship and how different types of colors work together. And what happens when you add white and add blue. This one even talks about you add blue. You add some yellow to this color, you're going to get that. And that's an interesting little bit. This is an interesting color wheel in that it's got a lot of information on it. It even talks about adding red to your greens and getting brown. So a little bit of information goes a long way in mixing colors. If you've got purple that's too bright, like I said, add some yellow. If you've got blue that's too bright, add a little orange. Or the other way around, you got orange that's too bright, add a tiny bit of blue. It doesn't take much, just a little tiny bit, and you'll tone your color down. But I hope this is helpful. Next week, I've got a fun project planned. Hopefully, I can get that one filmed this week. And if you have any questions about mixing your polymer clays, be sure and ask. Be sure and check out Facebook. I was talking about more, like I need more colors of clay. I was talking about some colors of clay I want on Facebook the other day. So be sure, get yourself a color wheel if you don't thoroughly understand how to mix your colors. And I'll talk to you next week. Bye.